AAA gaming companies have slowly been starting to lose their steam as better indie games have started coming out back to back to back. And AAA gaming companies, well, let's just say they don't have a notorious record for having amazing games. And even if they do, which a lot of them do, not consistently. Almost every single big company you could think of has a lot of flops. For example, think your favorite gaming company. EA? No, I know you didn't say that. You're not dumb. Just say any company. Epic Games. They have flops. Every single AAA gaming company has flops. They are not consistent. But before we get into why indie gaming companies are taking over AAA gaming companies, let's talk about what AAA companies are doing wrong to make their games go downhill. If AAA gaming companies were still making at least half-decent games, then they would have a decent-sized fan base, but they don't. A lot of the games that are coming out now have been canceled, or just the servers shut down in general. They're not making it anywhere. But why is that? It's not simply because indie games have been taking over and dominating AAA games. While that is true, like I said before, if AAA games were still half-decent, even if indie games were taking over, they would still have a decent sized fan base, exactly like I said earlier. But the thing is that they're not. I mean, look at half the games they've been putting out. Assassin's Creed, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And half the games that have been coming out now have been coming out half unreleased. I mean, look at Cyberpunk. That's not even, well, now Cyberpunk is an amazing game. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Cyberpunk at its start was absolutely abysmal. But then they made it good along the way. That's not how games should be. Then you look at Star Wars Battlefront 2, another game, absolutely atrocious start, but over time it became a well-acclaimed game, and personally I loved it, but the fan base was dwindling and it was too late for redemption, so the game had to be shut down. So while yes, indie gaming companies are taking over AAA gaming companies, that's not the reason they're failing. The majority of the reason that they're failing is because people are switching over to the indie game companies because they realize that these big companies simply don't care about you having fun. They just care about the money that's going to be going into their pocket. That's all they care about. That's the difference between indie gaming companies and AAA gaming companies. Now let's take a break from the greedy AAA companies and let's look at the indie gaming companies, or businesses should I say. Every single game that has come out indie-wise, which actually, let me not say that because there are, majority of the games are indie games, but a lot of the indie games that have been coming out recently have been beautifully made. Palworld, Lethal Company, Helldivers 2, I mean, you play these games and they're absolutely massive right now. A lot of these game servers couldn't even keep up with the amount of people that wanted to play these games. But the reason that they're doing so well is not only because people are bored of all the other AAA gaming company games, no. It's because they can tell that these games don't really only want their money. Yes, of course, every single company wants and needs money to support themselves and their future games, but you can tell that these games really did put effort into each and every section of their game. They didn't simply want a cash grab, a copy and paste from a different game. They didn't want to steal another game's concept and make it their own with a little bit of tweaks here and there. No. Every single one of these games, or at least the popular indie games that have come out recently, have had their own identity and their own personality. So when you're playing the game, it really does feel like you are enjoying it. Unlike other AAA games where you're playing it just because it's one of the best games out right now, or people are saying it's critically acclaimed, all that stuff. No, you're playing these games because it's genuinely fun for you. And it feels like the developers who made the game really put your fun and your entertainment front and foremost, which is a very different experience compared to all these other AAA gaming companies. Let's look at Lethal Company. This game, unfortunately, has been going on a downward spiral, at least to me. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. None of my friends have played it. I haven't heard any buzz about this game anymore. I think it's going on a dying route. But while it did come out, and still to this day, you could tell that the developer really did put a lot of love into his game. There was a lot of niche little Easter eggs that nobody would have even thought about, but he still put them in there. And it was just truly a well-made game. For example, the blind dogs that could hear you, made for hilariously funny moments. The ladder that if it falls on top of you, you're dead. Again, hilariously funny moments. The amazing, impeccable proximity voice chat with your teammates, absolutely amazing. This game has so many different qualities to it that show you how much the developer really did love making this game. And you could tell he had a blast making it as well. And that's the same for a lot of other indie games right now, and that, like I said before, completely different from the AAA gaming companies. You look at those and you could tell that they're just simply looking for your money. They want to reach into your pocket and grab the $2 you have in there. I'm just joking. You're not broke like me. Not everyone's broke like me. I mean the $70 or $80. That's actually another point I want to talk about. The absolutely outrageous pricings of these games. There was a game that was so hyped, and you probably have heard about it, but where is it now? Nowhere. The game I'm talking about is Skull and Bones. That game was supposed to be the Sea and Thieves dominator, the Sea and Thieves killer, which, by the way, I think Sea of Thieves is dead, but that's for another video, and I'll explain why I think that later. Anyways, that game was meant to be absolutely huge, but where is it now? Nowhere, because it came out unfinished. All the reviews on the games were absolutely abysmal. This was made by Ubisoft, a billion-dollar company, one of the biggest gaming companies out there. But it just wasn't good. It didn't feel like a fun game. And they charged, if I'm right, around $70 to $80 for that game. At least $60. A full AAA title for $60, and it wasn't even finished. From the reviews I've seen of this game, from the gameplay, it has been garbage. Absolutely abysmal. I was going to do a review on it myself, but I was not going to spend $70 because I don't make a penny from these videos as of right now, so I was not going to spend $70 and not get anything back from it. But this is a prime and classic example of just how little work all of the gaming companies, the massive ones, are putting into their games. They're putting nothing into it. They got a lot of money from that game. Don't get me wrong, they got a lot of money from that game. And that's exactly what they want. They don't care if the game dies. They don't care what happens to the game after it's released. They care that when they release it, all the hype they garnered, you pay them, and now they have your money. They don't care what happens after they have your money. As long as they get a big influx of a lot of people buying their game, they don't care what happens after, because they got exactly what they wanted. Now, on a polar opposite note, let's take a look at Helldivers 2. One of the most fun games out right now. I haven't played it in like maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I personally have been getting a little bit bored with it, but they're releasing new updates soon, so hopefully that'll bring me back in. But that's just my personal opinion. A lot of people absolutely love this game and still love it to this day, and I do too, don't get me wrong. This game broke all of the AAA gaming companies' expectations out of the water. They did not expect this game to blow up. And let me tell you one simple reason why Helldivers 2 blew up. Because of care. Now, what do I mean by that? The developers cared. More than any other game I've seen before. More than Lethal Company. More than every single other indie gaming company. This game cared about everything. Now, I don't know if a AAA studio picked it up and bought the game, but I do know that Arrowhead Studios did develop the game, and they aren't a very well-known gaming company, so it is indie. At least that's what I think it is. And you could tell, look at the dialogue in between the matches, or simply just look at the gameplay. If you look at the dialogue, you can tell they had fun with it. Have some liberty. That made me cringe saying that, sorry about that, but I just need to give you guys an example. A lot of funny, simple, quirky lines like that have been spread out and sprinkled throughout this entire game. You can tell that they just had fun making it. A lot of the weapons are goofy, wacky. A lot of the ways creatures die are wacky, and the whole atmosphere of the game itself is wacky. Basically, you're playing as a soldier playing for a fascist world that wants to take over every single other world and call it democracy. It's a funny game with a funny storyline, and it's hilarious. The amount of work that the community has to come together and do is amazing. It's like a D&D game. The whole community needs to come together and work towards one common goal, because if not, then you're not going to get it, and you can lose the war. It's happened before in Helldivers 1. So you need to come together and work as a community. Now, this game should be the absolute pinnacle and should be the absolute expectation of every game moving forward. Every single game to deserve our money. And by the way, Helldivers is $40. Yes, it's expensive, but it deserves that. I would pay $60 for it. The amount of time it took to make this game was amazing, and the graphics too are absolutely amazing. Now, every single game should be looking up to this, making their next game. The amount of love, they should put that amount of love into their games. They should put that amount of work into their games. And Helldivers has made more money than a lot of AAA games that are coming out now, because people are saying such good things about it, and deservingly so. They are putting a lot of work into the game, still constantly updating it, and still going to be updating it for a long time to come. You can earn all the premium currency in-game. The battle passes will never leave. They will never disappear. You can get it whenever you want. They don't only want your money, because if that was the case, they would make battle passes disappear. No, they want you to have an enjoyable experience in their game. And that's something I really do admire. I really hope that every other game takes that into account, making their future games. It's something that is very lackluster in the AAA gaming community today, and the gaming community as a whole, and I'm just looking forward to seeing that in other games that come out. Now, to wrap up this video, let me just say in a nutshell what I was trying to get at. In simple terms, AAA companies have been lackluster and really not putting effort into their games, and it's clear to see, and that is what's making their downfall happen. You could put any amount of money into a game, you could put billions of dollars into one, have a whole staff, have a whole building working on it, but if none of them really truly care for the game and just want the money or just want to do the job and get out of there, the game's not going to work. And on the other hand, we have indie gaming companies that really do put love into it, and you could tell they put their time and effort, and the people who make it really do care. These games will undoubtedly make a lot of money, and that is what I wanted to get at in this video. And I really do hope that, like I said before, every single game takes inspiration from this, and hopefully someone watches my video and they could bring it up to the higher ups, and they could, you know, hopefully make games better in the future, because I want to be playing them on my stream, _beanbot on Twitch, by the way. I know that was a shameless plug, but anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. This is the section of the video where I thank my Patreon sponsors, which as of right now, as far to my knowledge, I still have none. Completely fine. But I do want to let you guys know that this video was a little bit weird because, again, I used no script for it. So it was all off the top of the head because I want to sound more natural, so I didn't want to use a script. And I was just talking about the subjects that make me happy. And you also may be noticing that I took a while to upload this one. My last upload was, what, 11 days ago, maybe at this point 14, depending on how long I take to edit it. The reason about that was because, again, I'm streaming a lot on Twitch right now, and I simply put, I don't want to get burnt out, and I can't think of a lot of subjects. If you guys have a lot more subjects for me to talk about, please put them in the comments below, and I will gladly talk about them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and toodles.